It was supposed to be an ordinary flight, just another hop through the interstellar lanes, ferrying diplomats, traders, and the occasional soldier across the galactic expanse. For Ethan Cole, it was a chance to enjoy a rare luxury, a first-class seat. As a mechanic working on deep space freighters, he wasn't exactly drowning in credits, but after months of grueling work on the outer colonies, he had treated himself to a ticket aboard the Celestial Winds, a high-end passenger cruiser bound for the galactic core. First class was everything he had imagined. Spacious seats designed for multiple species, personalized atmospheric adjustments, and a dining menu that actually listed fresh ingredients instead of reconstituted protein. He had barely settled in, taking a sip of something far too expensive for his usual budget, when the murmurs began. Heads turned toward the boarding gate. Conversations hushed, then rose into an excited buzz. Even the sleekly dressed attendants straightened their postures as a towering figure stepped onto the ship. Ethan glanced up and understood why. A dragon. Not just any dragon, either. The passenger was an elder, his massive frame covered in dark crimson scales that shimmered under the station lights. His wings were folded neatly against his back, but even tucked in, they exuded power. Silver scars ran down his snout and across his chest, mementos from a lifetime of battles. The moment he stepped onto the ship, the air itself seemed to shift, heavy with the weight of presence only a war hero could command. General Varasanther. The name alone was legend. Ethan had heard the stories. The Battle of Sycorax, where Varasanther had held the line against an overwhelming force of Caliph warships, refusing to retreat even as his fleet was decimated. The years spent as an enforcer of peace in the tumultuous Outer Rim. The dragon was revered, feared, and respected across the galaxy. And here he was, boarding the same ship. Yet something was off. Varasanther moved slowly, his steps careful. His breathing was measured, too measured, as though every breath took effort. His eyes, once filled with fire and fury, now held exhaustion beneath their ember glow. The mighty general was not just traveling, he was struggling. Ethan frowned as he noticed the attendants whispering among themselves. The general was directed toward the economy section. That was wrong. Dragons rarely traveled on commercial flights, and when they did, accommodations were made. Ethan knew the Celestial Winds had private suites fit for their kind. But the way the attendants hesitated, the way their gazes flicked away when the general questioned them, told him something was amiss. Someone had slighted him. Whether it was an administrative error or something more deliberate, Ethan didn't know. But he knew injustice when he saw it. Without overthinking, he stood. "Sir," an attendant approached, a polished smile on her face. "Is there a problem?" "Yeah," Ethan said, adjusting his jacket. "Give him my seat." The attendant blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Excuse me?" "My seat," Ethan repeated, nodding toward Varasanther. "Give it to him." Whispers rippled through the cabin. Some passengers scoffed, others murmured in approval. The attendant hesitated, her gaze flicking toward a superior standing nearby. The supervisor, a pale-skinned Vrothi, merely nodded. A decision had been made, and Ethan didn't wait for further discussion. He picked up his bag and stepped aside, gesturing toward the now empty seat. Varasanther, who had been quietly watching, exhaled through his nostrils. A thin stream of smoke curled into the air. "You would give up your place for me?" The dragon's voice was deep, resonant, but touched with a weariness Ethan hadn't expected. "You've earned it," Ethan replied simply. For a long moment, the dragon studied him. Then, with a slow, deliberate nod, he stepped forward and took the seat. The attendants scrambled to adjust the environmental settings to his preference, their earlier reluctance melting into hurried efficiency. Ethan, now without a seat in first class, was escorted to the back of the ship, past plush seating and luxury compartments, into the cramped confines of economy. He didn't mind. He had grown up on mining stations, where personal space was a myth and comfort was a distant dream. He squeezed into a seat between two overly perfumed traders and exhaled, rubbing his eyes. The murmurs around him eventually faded as the ship prepared for takeoff. Then, the unbelievable happened. Barely an hour into the flight, the ship shuddered violently. The overhead lights flickered. A voice crackled over the intercom, something about an emergency power fluctuation. Ethan felt the shift instantly, the subtle wrongness in the ship's hum. Years of working on freighters had trained his instincts. This wasn't turbulence. This was sabotage. Panic spread through the cabin as the ship lurched again. The artificial gravity stuttered, sending loose items floating before stabilizing. Ethan's grip tightened on the armrest. Whatever was happening, it wasn't a simple malfunction. He turned his head toward first class. Through the small gap between seats, he saw Verisanther rise to his feet, his expression grim. The old dragon felt it too. And then the alarms began to scream. The ship was under attack. The emergency lights bathed the cabin in a dull red glow, and a mechanical voice droned over the intercom. Warning! Hull breach detected. Emergency lockdown initiated. All passengers remained seated. The command was pointless. Panic had already gripped the ship. A terrified shriek erupted from the front of the economy section as a passenger struggled against his restraints, his insectoid limbs flailing. Others were shouting, some fumbling with their harnesses, while the more experienced travelers remained eerily silent, bracing for the worst. Ethan didn't move yet. Years of working on freighters had trained him to recognize patterns in mechanical failures. This wasn't just turbulence, and it wasn't a routine systems malfunction. The ship had been sabotaged. Then the celestial winds jolted again, more violently this time. Ethan's stomach lurched as the artificial gravity wavered, flickering between normal and null before stabilizing in a weaker form. The ship was losing power. His eyes darted to the aisle, and through the chaos, he saw him. Verisanther, the old dragon, had risen from his seat, his massive frame moving with a grace that defied his apparent exhaustion from earlier. His talons curled slightly, his nostrils flaring as he scanned the cabin. He wasn't panicking. He was assessing. Ethan knew that look. It was the same expression his old foreman had worn when a mining rig had started to collapse. Pure, focused calculation. The general was piecing together what was happening just as Ethan was. And then the intercom crackled again. But this time, it wasn't the ship's automated system. A voice, cold, sharp, to all passengers aboard the Celestial Winds, remain calm. This vessel is now under our control. A deep, eerie silence followed. The ship's crew had been cut off. Whoever had taken control had done so completely. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Pirates. Not the common kind. The type that would take a freighter's cargo and leave its crew stranded in escape pods. No, this was different. The Celestial Winds was a luxury cruiser, meaning there were high-profile individuals on board. This was a hostage situation. As the realization spread through the passengers, the panic intensified. But before anyone could do anything reckless, the doors to the first-class section hissed open. 4 figures entered. Humanoid, but armored from head to toe in dark, reflective plating. Their helmets had no visible visors, no eyes, just smooth, faceless masks. Each of them carried a sleek energy weapon, the barrels glowing with a pulsing amber light. One of them stepped forward. His voice, now coming directly from his helmet's external speakers, was measured, controlled. If you cooperate, no one will be harmed. Silence followed. Passengers held their breath, waiting. The pirates surveyed the cabin like wolves picking out the weakest prey. Then a mistake. An Andari merchant, trembling with fear, reached down, maybe for a hidden weapon, maybe just to unbuckle his harness, but it didn't matter. One of the pirates snapped up his weapon and fired without hesitation. A blinding streak of energy struck the Andari's shoulder. He screamed, clutching the charred wound, and slumped over. The leader tilted his head slightly. No sudden movements. The message was clear. Do as we say, or worse will happen. Ethan clenched his fists, his pulse hammering. He needed a plan. Then he felt the weight of a gaze on him. Verisanther was looking straight at him. Not at the pirates. Not at the other passengers. At him. And for the second time in the last hour, Ethan knew something unbelievable was about to happen. Ethan didn't look away from Verisanther. The dragon's golden eyes, sharp despite his age, held a question. Are you ready? The question wasn't spoken, but it was there. Unmistakable. Ethan exhaled slowly. His heart was pounding, but not from fear anymore. Anticipation. Verisanther wasn't just waiting to die. He was waiting to strike. The pirates moved methodically, their weapons sweeping across the cabin, scanning for threats. They weren't sloppy. That meant they were professionals, or at least trained well enough to know fear kept people in line. But there was a problem with fear. If you pushed too hard, it turned into something else. Ethan flexed his fingers, keeping them loose. His mind was racing through everything he knew about starship systems. The power fluctuations from earlier, was it sabotage, or was something failing? If it was mechanical, he could use it. Then the ship jolted again. Not as violently as before, but enough that one of the pirates shifted his stance to stay balanced. Verisanther took a slow step forward. The leader snapped his head toward him, raising his weapon. Stay in your seat. The dragon's expression didn't change. He didn't growl or bare his teeth. He simply stood there, towering, ancient. I fought in 3 galactic wars, Verisanther said, his voice deep, steady. I know men like you. The leader hesitated for half a second. That was enough. Verisanther moved. Ethan barely saw it. One moment the dragon was still, the next he was a storm of motion. His massive talons lashed out, knocking the leader's weapon aside. The pirate fired, but the shot went wide, scorching the ceiling. Passengers screamed. Chaos erupted. Ethan didn't hesitate. Move. The nearest pirate swung his weapon toward Verisanther. Not fast enough. The dragon grabbed him by the arm and wrenched him forward, using his own momentum to slam him into the bulkhead. The impact was brutal. The pirate crumpled instantly. 2 left. Ethan lunged, driving his shoulder into another pirate's midsection. The armored figure staggered, caught off guard, and Ethan ripped the rifle from his hands. He didn't even have time to aim before Verisanther was there, finishing the job with a crushing blow that sent the pirate sprawling. The last one bolted for the exit. Too late. Verisanther extended a claw and flicked something from his belt, an old military-grade grav cuff. It latched onto the pirate's leg with a magnetic clamp, yanking him to the ground with a thud. Silence. Passengers stared, frozen. The whole fight had taken seconds. Ethan sucked in a breath. His hands were shaking, but he forced himself to keep moving. He tossed the stolen rifle to Verisanther, who caught it effortlessly. Not bad, kid, the dragon muttered. Ethan let out a short, breathless laugh. Not bad yourself. The intercom crackled again. The same cold voice as before. Interesting. It wasn't angry. It wasn't afraid. It was amused. Ethan's stomach dropped. Whoever was behind this hadn't expected resistance. But now that they had it, they weren't retreating. They were adapting. Verisanther's eyes narrowed. They're watching us. The intercom hummed for a moment, then, if you want to fight, we'll give you one. The ship lurched violently. Gravity failed, and Ethan realized they had just lost control of the entire vessel. The gravity cut out completely. Ethan's stomach lurched as he lifted from the floor, his body weightless. Around him, passengers screamed as they flailed, trying to grab onto anything. Some tumbled into the air, helpless against the sudden shift. Verisanther didn't panic. He adapted. The dragon extended his wings slightly, using them like stabilizers. His claws reached out, gripping the metal bulkhead with ease. His golden eyes flashed toward Ethan. Find something to hold on to. Ethan reached desperately for a seat handle, but his momentum sent him spinning. His body twisted uncontrollably, the world a disorienting blur. Think. He wasn't just floating. The ship was moving. The pirates were pilots. They had cut the internal gravity because they were changing course. Ethan's mind raced through the possibilities. If the ship's gravity was off, then it meant the artificial stabilizers were no longer compensating for external movement, which meant there was a way to track where they were being taken, if he could reach the console. But first, he had to stop spinning. Verisanther moved first. The dragon reached out, snagging Ethan's jacket midair with impossible precision. With one powerful yank, he pulled Ethan toward him and steadied him. Ethan exhaled sharply, heart hammering. Thanks. Verisanther didn't answer. He was looking past Ethan toward the cockpit. The intercom crackled again. Impressive, the pirate leader's voice drawled. I expected you to struggle more. But I suppose an old war beast still has a few tricks left. Verisanther's claws tightened against the bulkhead, his lip curling slightly. Show yourself, coward. A chuckle. Soon, Ethan grit his teeth. Whoever this was, they weren't just hijackers. They were playing a game. But that was their mistake. Because humans? Humans didn't play by the rules. Ethan looked down at his wrist, his multi-tool watch. It had a simple magnetic pulse function for stabilizing tools in zero-gravity repairs. Not strong, not powerful, but just enough. He clicked it on. A faint pulse radiated, just enough to push him slightly downward. His boots connected with the floor panel. Weakly, but enough for a foothold. Enough to shift his weight properly. Verisanther noticed. His expression flickered with understanding. Ethan grinned. I'll take the cockpit. Verisanther nodded. I'll cover you. Ethan launched forward. Zero-gravity movement was about control, not force. He propelled himself in short bursts, using the seat handles and walls to redirect momentum. Behind him, Verisanther pushed off with one powerful motion, his wings guiding him through the air with the grace of a predator. The moment Ethan reached the cockpit door, he slammed his multi-tool against the access panel. It sparked. Then, click, the door hissed open. Inside, two pilots. Both armed. Both already turning toward him. Ethan didn't hesitate. He kicked off the wall, diving straight at them. The first pilot swung his rifle. Too slow. Ethan caught his arm, using the momentum to yank him forward, sending the pirate spinning uncontrollably in zero gravity. The second raised his gun, and then Verisanther crashed through the doorway. The dragon grabbed the second pilot and slammed him into the ceiling. Hard. Ethan spun himself upright, panting. The control panel was right there, but his stomach sank. The main screen was flashing red. Automated course lock engaged. Destination unknown. And worse, they weren't alone. Through the cockpit window, Ethan saw it. A massive pirate warship waiting just ahead. And the hijackers weren't planning to land. They were planning to dock. The moment they did, Ethan knew everyone on board was dead. The pirate warship loomed ahead, its docking clamps extending like the talons of a predator preparing to seize its prey. Ethan's heart pounded as he scanned the ship's controls. Locked course. External override. No way to stop the docking. The pirates had planned everything, but they hadn't planned for a human and a dragon working together. Verisanther braced himself inside the cockpit, his wings flexing slightly to keep his balance in zero gravity. His golden eyes locked onto the warship outside. Calculating. Thinking. Ethan's fingers danced across the console. He might not be able to stop the docking sequence, but he could rewrite what happened when they arrived. He pulled up emergency overrides. Standard ships like this were programmed with a handful of contingency plans in case of catastrophic failure. One of them, atmospheric evacuation. A brutal measure meant only for extreme emergencies. It would flood the entire cargo hold with emergency venting gases, purging anything inside, including boarding pirates. Ethan clenched his teeth. I can buy us time. Verisanther glanced at him. Ow! Ethan pointed to the control screen. I can override the docking protocols with an emergency hazard flush. If they try to board us, they'll be walking straight into a purge. The dragon let out a low growl of approval. Good, but we still have a ship full of civilians. And these pirates, they will not simply let us go. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Then we make sure they have a reason to. He turned to the ship's intercom and activated the broadcast. Time to play their game. Hey, pirate guy, Ethan said, his voice steady. You said you expected a struggle? Well, you've got one. You board this ship, and you're all walking straight into an emergency venting purge. Your entire team? Gone. Silence. Then, the pirate leader's voice crackled over the speakers. Amused, but cautious. You're bluffing. Ethan's fingers hovered over the manual purge command. Try me. For a moment, there was no response. Then, clever. A slow chuckle. You humans always were reckless. A pause. Then the leader's voice hardened. But you still don't understand the situation. You think stalling is your way out. It's not. Ethan exchanged a glance with Verisanther. The dragon's wings twitched. Then the warship changed course. Instead of docking, it began moving, positioning itself above their ship. Ethan's stomach dropped. They're not boarding, Verisanther murmured. They're preparing to. The first impact struck. The pirate warship opened fire. Not to destroy, but to disable. Ethan and Verisanther were slammed backward as the ship lurched violently. Warning sirens blared. System failures flashing across the monitors. Ethan swore. They're trying to force us into submission. Verisanther's wings snapped open. His expression hardened into something deadly. The warrior beneath the diplomat was awakening. Then we strike back. Ethan didn't question him. Verisanther turned, launching himself toward the ship's weapons console. Even a commercial vessel had basic defensive turrets. Not meant for war, but still functional. The dragon slammed his claws into the controls, manually activating the external cannons. The ship shuddered as the first retaliatory shots fired. Outside, the warship veered. The pirates hadn't expected resistance. Ethan saw his opening. He overrode the emergency docking clamps, not to stop the pirates, but to force their ship into an unexpected maneuver. Suddenly, the warship was jerked sideways, momentarily disoriented. It was the moment they needed. Verisanther fired again. The shot connected with the warship's sensor array, blinding them. The pirate leader's voice came over the comms again. Furious. You have no idea what you've just done, human. Ethan smirked. Yeah? Well, you have no idea what happens when you mess with a human and a dragon. He cut the transmission. Then he turned to Verisanther. We need an escape route. Now. Verisanther's eyes gleamed. I have an idea. He reached down, activating a hidden command within the ship's diplomatic registry. A distress beacon. Not just any beacon. One encoded with royal-level emergency clearance. Within seconds, the comms lit up. An incoming transmission. A deep, commanding voice. This is the Draconic Sovereignty Fleet. We have received the emergency call. Who dares threaten the safety of our ambassador? The pirate ship immediately began to retreat. Ethan exhaled sharply. They had won. The pirate warship fled, vanishing into the void as the Draconic Sovereignty Fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their arrival was immediate, overwhelming, absolute. Massive serpentine dreadnoughts encircled the civilian transport, their golden hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars. Their mere presence sent a clear message. This battle was over. Inside the ship, the tension evaporated. The civilians, who had been huddled in fear moments before, erupted into cheers. Ethan slumped back in his seat, running a hand over his face. That was close. Verisanther let out a deep, satisfied rumble. You are reckless, human. He turned his golden gaze toward Ethan. And I see now why your kind is so feared. Ethan let out a short laugh. Fear's a strong word. The dragon's gaze didn't waver. No, it is the right word. A new transmission came through the comms. A draconic voice, deep commanding. Ambassador Verisanther. Report. The dragon straightened, his regal posture returning. The situation is handled. The threat neutralized. Thanks to, he glanced at Ethan, an unexpected ally. There was a pause on the other end. Then, this human, what is his name? Verisanther hesitated. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, he reached down and activated the external feed, revealing Ethan's face to the sovereignty. This is Ethan Sharp, a human mechanic. A rumble from the other side. A mechanic? Ethan smirked. Hey, we're pretty good at fixing things. The Draconic commander remained silent for a moment. Then, finally he spoke. The sovereignty owes you a great debt. Ethan Sharp. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That mean I get a free ride next time? A deep chuckle. Perhaps. But first, the ambassador shall escort you to Draconis Prime. Ethan blinked. Wait, what? Verisanther inclined his head. It is a matter of honor. You did not need to stand beside me. Yet you did. And so, by Draconic tradition, I must acknowledge this. Ethan frowned. Acknowledge how. The dragon's wings twitched slightly. You saved a royal diplomat's life. In my culture, that means you must be rewarded. Ethan's gut tightened. He had heard stories about Draconis Prime, a world of unbreakable laws, sacred traditions, and a strict hierarchy. A world where debts were not forgotten. A world where, if a human wasn't careful, they could find themselves entangled in something far bigger than they ever intended. Ethan sighed. This was going to get complicated. He forced a grin. Well, guess I better start packing. Verisanther's eyes gleamed. Indeed. 1 month later, Draconis Prime. The capital of the Draconic sovereignty was a world of floating citadels, colossal spires, and firelit skies. Ethan stood in the middle of a grand chamber, feeling very much out of place. Before him, a council of elder dragons loomed, their eyes piercing, ancient, unreadable. At the center sat the Draconic sovereign herself, a titan of obsidian scales and burning violet eyes. Ethan had thought Verisanther was massive. This dragon made him look small. She spoke. Her voice shook the chamber. The human, Ethan Sharp. Ethan forced himself to stand tall. Yeah, that's me. The sovereign studied him for a long moment. Then, finally, you saved my son. Ethan blinked. Wait, what? His eyes darted to Verisanther. The dragon stood beside him, his expression stoic. Son! Ethan almost laughed. Of course. He should have seen it. That's why the sovereignty sent an entire fleet. The Draconic sovereign continued. By ancient law, a life debt must be repaid in kind. Ethan frowned. I don't need. She raised a claw. Silence. The debt shall be fulfilled in the only way acceptable. Her burning eyes locked onto him. From this day forward, Ethan Sharp, you are under the protection of the Draconic sovereignty. A murmur swept through the chamber. Some looked shocked, others furious. Ethan's stomach twisted. He had just been claimed as an official ally of the most powerful dragon empire in the galaxy. A symbol, a representative, maybe even a problem. The sovereign's voice echoed through the halls. From this moment, no blade shall touch you, no foe shall claim you, and no force in this galaxy shall harm you without invoking the wrath of the sovereignty. Ethan swallowed hard. Verisanther smirked. Well, mechanic, it seems you have made quite the impression. Ethan sighed. He had just wanted to give up his seat. Now, he was a protected figure in the heart of an empire. And somewhere, out in the vastness of space, he could already feel the ripple effects beginning. The pirates wouldn't forget. The sovereignty wouldn't forget. And neither would the rest of the galaxy. Because today, a human had earned the protection of dragons. And that changed everything. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell. But one phrase remained whispered among the stars, words spoken in defiance, in hope, in unbreakable will. Human, don't stop.